What's up, amigos? Do you want to learn what I consider the greatest coaching and teaching methodology in the world that I've ever encountered? Stay tuned and I'll share with you the teaching methodology of Luis Brugueras, legendary Spanish coach. And we can talk about Spanish tennis and his entire philosophy and drill system. It's going to be a very interesting chat. It's Chris Lewitt back with you on the 101st episode of the Prodigy Maker Tennis Show. Wow, over 100 episodes. Thank you guys for viewing. Let's talk about Spanish tennis and Luis Brugueras. By the way, I am broadcasting from Barcelona, where I'm here with a few students, and I'm studying as always and trying to catch up on the latest trends in Spanish tennis and European tennis, so I can bring that back to you guys in the States and for all my students. So if you'd like to train the authentic Spanish way and you can't get to Spain, I'm probably your best bet, because I consider myself one of the world's leading experts on Spanish tennis. I've written the book Secrets of Spanish Tennis, which is a popular bestseller and is now becoming a classic in the industry. Now in its second edition, The Secrets of Spanish Tennis 2.0. Check it out if you haven't read that. I'm really proud of that book. It's 20 years of study and labor into that most recent book, The Secrets of Spanish Tennis 2.0. So Spanish tennis, guys, Luis Brugueras. If you don't know who Luis Buggera is, maybe just Google him and learn about basically he is the godfather of Spanish tennis. In my book, I said he's like the grandfather or godfather of Spanish tennis, along with the great Pato Alvarez, who is another genius Spanish coach. But I consider Luis's teaching system incredibly special and unique. And so I wanted to talk about what makes it so special and unique, and why I think it may possibly be the best teaching method in the world. And I don't say that lightly. I've studied with a lot of legendary coaches, and obviously I haven't studied with every coach in the world, but I think I have a good sense of what makes a great teaching methodology. And Luis's system, his approach, his philosophy is very unique, and I think has been proven in the generations of Spanish champions that have come up in the last few decades. And I really think there are some unique qualities that, if you don't agree 100% that it's the best teaching method you ever encountered, I think you'll find many aspects of this teaching method, the Brugueras method, that are valuable and that you could take and kind of work into your own teaching system, into your work system as a coach, or if you're a parent or a player, you could learn some valuable things that could help you become a better player and maybe train yourself or your kids better. And so Luis Brugueras, I started studying with him about 20 years ago, literally 20 years ago, and I just had a nice meeting with him today. We talked about possibly collaborating on a new book. He's always wanted to write a book, and we've talked about it for many years. And he's just been a wonderful mentor to me, and I'm very grateful to have met him and to have spent so much time with him and learned the Spanish system through his eyes, and to learn this incredible teaching method that he developed. And I'd like to just go through, like, point by point, a few things that I think are really, really important aspects of this system. The first one, and you may not appreciate this, but I really do, is that it is an economical system. And I mean that on many levels. Number one, it's very simple to teach other coaches or parents or players. You can learn this method really, really simply. And that means it's a lower cost to develop coaches, for example. Coaches don't need to learn an elaborate system, an elaborate approach or a system of drills. All of the drills are simple. The teaching method is simple. And the other thing is it's a methodology and philosophy that will work even if you're not a great player. And that's, I think, very, very important too. You have many parents who would like to develop their kids, and many coaches who just weren't blessed to be great tennis players, or never made it, or had injuries, or whatever it is. And you can actually become a world-class coach with this system. and you don't have to be a great player. You don't have to have a lot of resources. So you can basically build champions with this method with a bucket of balls, some hard work, and some elbow sweat and elbow grease, and some simple philosophies. And you don't have to be a great hitter or a tennis player. So for these reasons, I think it's an incredible system in terms of economics, efficiency. And so it would make sense if you had limited resources, this would be one of the greatest systems for you, to learn as a coach or a parent or as a player trying to improve themselves. And I think that's one of the reasons we've seen this tremendous growth and explosion of Spanish tennis since the 1980s, when Luis was practicing in the field. We saw that Spain was developing players without as many resources as other countries through this type of methodology. And I just think there's some evidence there, and there's definitely a link between this method and using resources carefully and wisely. Guys, I just want to take a moment to talk about our affiliate, the TopspinPro. We endorse this product. It's one of my favorite devices to use at home. I also have several of them at the club, and we use them all the time when kids are waiting in line to drill or to help kids actually practice their brushing and lag and whipping up through the ball. So it has a very good mechanism where you can see the ball spinning. It's very addictive, and my students love it. So I think it's just a great device. You can use it at home on a rainy day, in inclement weather. You can take it with you on the road to do warm-ups and practice in the hotel room. It's very lightweight and portable. So I just think it has a lot of uses, and I really like the mechanism. Very easy on the arm. You're not going to get any injuries, and you can do lots of excellent practice with the TopspinPro. So please go to chrislewitt.com/TopspinPro to purchase the product. And it is an affiliate of ours, so it helps support the program, helps me bring you this great show by purchasing through the link. If you go to chrislewitt.com/TopspinPro, and you can buy the TopspinPro there wisely and maximizing resources. So you don't have to be a great player. You don't have to have a lot of money. You do have to be a hard worker. You do have to learn some simple drills, but they're not too complicated that you cannot do them. You don't need a lot of equipment. You don't need any fancy props. You just need a bucket of balls, maybe a high string, that if you guys watch my videos, I like to use the high string on the court. And you need to have a passion, and this is basically what all parents would love, a method that's simple, it's easy to learn. You don't have to spend, hundreds of hours learning this method, learning the philosophy. And you basically have a full package system that can develop top players very consistently without draining a lot of resources and without a huge time commitment. So if I told you as a coach or a parent or a player watching, what if I could teach you a system that would give you a good chance to be a top professional player in the world, that doesn't cost a lot of money, doesn't take a lot of equipment, doesn't take too much time to learn, just requires a lot of hard work, obviously, and sweat equity. Would you be interested in something like that? And I think most people, if they were proposed that, would say, absolutely. This is amazing. It sounds too good to be true, actually. But in fact, I've learned such a system, and I use this system. I use this method all the time. I mean, the Bruguera method from Spain has become one of my backbones, along with all the lessons I learned from Gilad Bloom. If you haven't seen my podcast on Gilad Bloom, the legendary Israeli coach who was my other primary mentor as a coach, please check it out. We did a podcast recently that was well received. And Gilad, I believe, also had an incredibly brilliant technical teaching system and method, a very good philosophy on training, also believed in hard work. But I think that system is a bit more complex, a bit more costly, perhaps, to implement, and maybe requires a lot of knowledge and education to implement. For example, you have to have like an incredible technical eye. You have to be able to understand all these different nuances of technique that maybe only Gilad and a few other people who just have that gift could pull off. But Luis's system is a system for all. I was just speaking with him today at lunch, and he basically said he tried to create a method that anybody could use and that any player could improve from. I just think it's a very bold initiative, very grand proposal, grand scheme, grand, a big dream that he had, an ambition to create a system that is simple, not costly, economically viable, and that doesn't take a long time to learn, doesn't take a long time to explain and teach, doesn't cost a lot of money, that works from the youngest kid, 3, 4, 5 years old, to senior players, to all the way up to high-level ITF juniors and professional players. And if that sounds unbelievable, it's not. Like, I've seen this method in action, and I use this method all the time, also with a broad range of players, levels, and ages. So that is another huge benefit, that this is a method that works with all ages and all levels. And I don't think you can say that about many other methods. You usually have some methods that are good for, maybe pros or high-level players, some philosophies that work better with advanced players, and then you have some approaches that are maybe better with developmental level players or younger players. There's maybe one approach that's better with kids and one approach that works better with adults. And I believe Luis's approach is the best approach I've ever seen that can work with such a broad range of abilities and ages, levels. I just think that's really an incredibly special and valuable aspect to the Bruguera method. And I've experienced that firsthand as I use this method all the time on the court, in our summer, high-performance summer camp, in all of my lessons, depending on the kid. I have a very interesting, I think, approach to coaching that is eclectic, in that I draw a lot from Gilad's Israeli style and from Luis's Spanish style, and I've also studied with other Spanish coaches. So I think that eclectic approach gives me a lot of different possibilities, different ways I can approach getting solutions with the player, which is definitely great. But if I had to just choose one system, like, for example, here's a scenario. If I had to develop players in a country and I needed to develop as many players as possible with as few resources as possible, and I needed to train coaches in a methodology that didn't require hundreds and hundreds of hours of study, for example, and where I could get coaches up to speed quickly and get players to the highest level of the game, to world-class level of tennis, this is the system that I would choose. I would choose a system, maybe modify it slightly, maybe provide some additional educational resources to go along with it, but just in and of itself, incredible system that is proven successful. And it's not perfect. Like, I could talk about some different areas that maybe I don't agree with, or maybe need to be updated a little bit, but essentially a ready to go packaged development system, philosophy and method that will work with very little resources, and it doesn't take a lot of time to implement, and you don't have to be a top player to do it with people. You don't have to have like esoteric knowledge or have a very high level of the game. I mean, to me, this is incredible. It's an incredible thing. So you're probably curious what aspects of this method are unique. Well, for one, I would say that the Bruguera method, going back to the 70s and 80s, was way ahead of its time in several areas, but one area was a guided discovery. And so Luis does not believe in teaching in like a command fashion, like traditional teaching where the teacher instructs and the student just absorbs information, which is a very traditional way to teach. He really believes in the Socratic method. Socrates was famous for teaching through questions, question and answer discussions. So this is how Luis believes in working with players and helping them grow. And sure enough, in today's sports psychology and general psychology, there's a lot of research that supports this type of learning is more productive, more efficient, is better learning than just direct instruction. There may be a place for direct instruction, but Luis's concept, this is decades ahead of his time in the 70s and 80s, for example, was that I'm going to ask questions of my students. That was a big part of his pedagogy. And we're going to engage in sort of a Socratic dialogue. And I think that is a really powerful way to teach tennis. And it also relates to a modern movement of ecological dynamics, because Luis believed in not telling what the player to do so much, but trying to find the right environmental design to help the players learn on their own, to develop their own, what he called, or what he still calls, the intuitive intelligence, for them to develop this automation and knowledge coming from within, rather than having the coach always dictate everything to the player. So that is very, very unique and very much ahead of his time, cutting edge for, if you consider when Luis was teaching in 1970s, 1980s especially. This was a time where most coaches, and Pato Alvarez included, were very command-oriented, and you sort of did what the coach tells you to do. And therefore, the player was very dependent on the coach. And for Luis, he tried to develop the opposite. And in his methodology, he tries to develop players who are independent of the coach, who have their own intuitive intelligence that they've learned through guided discovery and the environment that's created with the right drill or the right exercise, things like that. So I think that is a very, very powerful and unique type of pedagogy that you don't see that much in the US. And you do see some movements for ecological dynamics, which is similar but slightly different, especially in the UK, for example. But it's a combination of guided discovery in terms of psychology and tactics, and along with a lot of fundamental repetition and a very specialized drill system for acceleration. And so this is this unique interplay between an open Socratic dialogue, a guided discovery way of learning where the player develops their own automation and their own knowledge through experiential knowledge. And that's combined with a very traditional focus on repetition, which develops skill. So thousands and thousands of repetitions with baskets and feeding, particularly with hand feeding. And all of the feeding can be simply learned. You don't have to be an expert coach or player to do the feeding. But basically the feeding is hand feeding. So Luis is very big on feeding con los manos, with the hand, up close, and then progressing to racket feeding, and then the coach acting and playing like a wall, la pared, and then eventually live ball exercises. So it's a very simple progression that I think really all coaches should consider following: hand feeding, racket feeding, coach volleying like a wall, and then live ball exercises. This is a very nice way to structure teaching. And so Luis believed in that approach, and he didn't believe in dictating everything to the students. Students had to learn on their own, and that was ahead of his time. And the acceleration drills that I mentioned are really ahead of his time. And I think they are just brilliant when you remember when he was doing these types of things, 70s, 80s, he developed a system of acceleration drills. So what he would do is he tosses the ball in rapid succession from the hand, typically, and sometimes with the racket. There's a lot of different exercises for this. Basically, to develop what we know now as to increase the rate of force development, to improve the signal from the brain to the muscles that are firing, to improve not only the speed of the signal, the control of the signal, and the control of the relaxation in the body as you accelerate, which is also important, but also the recruitment of the signal activating more muscle fibers for more power. And so Luis tells the story of his son Sergi, who was a great player in the 80s and 90s, Sergi Brugueras. He won the French Open 2 times in 93 and 94. He talks about how Sergi was a slender build and he could never have the muscle of like a Boris Becker of that time. And so he thought to himself, how can I create a method? What drills can I do to help Sergi defeat these bigger, stronger guys like Becker? And he developed this rapid fire hand tossing regimen, these different drills that would challenge the nervous system of the player to increase the racket speed. He said, I want to find something that increases the racket speed. And I think he stumbled on a very early version of velocity-based training, which is a big buzzword in sports science now in the gym for strength and power building. And you can use velocity-based training to train the nervous system to recruit and basically potentiate a movement, to increase the speed of the signal and the potentiation of the muscle fibers. So this is I think, phenomenally forward-thinking, genius discovery that he made at that time, and those drills started to become common all over Spain, and they helped propel Spanish players to the top of the game with essentially a sort of a primitive, without any of the technology that we have now, sort of a primitive velocity-based training method that doesn't require any tech. You can just do it by feel with the player, and the player also learns to modulate to feel, to stay loose and whippy, and you can work on other aspects of their acceleration like balance, control of the body, staying with extension. You can work on little technical cues within this very special acceleration method, series of drills for acceleration. And I think that is especially unique about this system, and I think it's one of the things that makes it so valuable. There's also an emphasis on training reaction and overloading the body. I think that probably builds more muscular endurance. So, there's a lot of drills that come in fast repetition or fast. The ball comes like in an overload tempo. The ball comes faster than you would normally receive it when you're playing. There's usually a pretty large time gap between when you hit the ball and you have to hit another one. And so one of the genius things Luis did in his method is he started tossing the balls faster than you normally would get them. And so what that does is sort of, it is very mentally and physically taxing. So you develop really good endurance in your body, and also your mind. It overloads your nervous system. The ball's coming faster. You have to, in some respects, maintain your swing speed. You're always asked to maintain your swing speed while the ball is coming faster. So it's exhausting. It's a mental overload. It has like a high neural fatigue. It fatigues the nervous system it's very intense. And so there's a high neural demand. So he's got these other exercises that have a high neural demand, build muscular endurance of the swing. And he has some exercises that are velocity-based training to develop maximum acceleration of the racket head. And the only way to do that is to stay whippy and loose and control your body, all this good stuff. So you learn to swing really fast, but control your body. It's very, very unique. And then he has another set of drills which work the eyes and the reactions. And so that helps you move and respond to the ball a little quicker, developing those signals, those neuromotor signals to the eyes, the reading, so the reading cues and reading the scene or the information in front of you, sending it to the brain, and then the reaction. He has a number of exercises that work that as well. So very, very unique and very, very futuristic set of drills within this system that are easy to implement, easy to learn, don't require any tech. And I think that now looking back with the knowledge that we have in modern sports science, very, very, very effective at improving different aspects of the eyes and reading and reaction, and the increasing the ability to the rate of force development, RFD. So really fascinating. I have some other podcasts where I've talked about the Bruguera method. I have a lot of articles. Check out my new Substack if you're interested in reading like more in depth about these things. I have a new Substack article coming out about Luis and his method this Sunday. So my Substack's just Chris Lewitt. We have a lot of subscribers, and I send out a weekly article or in-depth essay. So it's growing. That Substack's growing very fast. It's really fun. We have a nice community there. But basically, these are like some of the things the reasons why I think his system's so unique. Getting back to the idea of combining guided discovery, like Socratic dialogue, with a lot of repetition, I think that's very unique. You know, you have on the one hand something very forward-thinking, you know, something that's more on the cutting edge of teaching, you know, and then you have something that's a little bit more traditional. So one progressive aspect to psychology and tactics and teaching, and then you have one traditional aspect, and they're sort of blended together into something really nice, because a lot of times what we see today with ecological dynamics is we get the environmental design of the player, like that part's cool, but what we don't get is a lot of the repetition needed, high quality repetition, high volume of repetition needed to develop mastery of skills. And so I think Luis uniquely combined both. He had a futuristic notion to teach with questions and to teach with environmental controls and parameters, finding the right exercise. At the same time, he kept a traditional aspect of teaching. There's a bit of paradox there, or potential conflict there, but he somehow fused it, and it works really, really well. So the players get a lot of repetition, a lot of skill development, getting strong through reps from traditional type of drilling, and at the same time they learn concepts conceptually and tactically, and they learn psychology in a more progressive way. Luis also believed, I think important to note, in just keeping a tough environment, but not abusive, a tough but friendly and positive environment. So he's always said to try to be positive with your coaching, to be uplifting and motivating, but never to sacrifice your standards. Always be demanding, but positive. And I think that also is a really beautiful aspect to his method. It's not a method where you berate kids or you talk down to kids. It's a positive methodology, a positive philosophy, but it has very high standards. And I think that is, for most people, unless you have a little soldier in front of you, that's a really great way to coach. Is be positive, because it's a tough journey, and you want to motivate and inspire, but at the same time, don't sacrifice standards. There has to be an understanding that we're going to work. And that's basically the way I try to coach all of my juniors now, all of my students now. So for all these aspects, the Bruguera method to me strikes me as possibly the greatest teaching method in the world. Obviously, there's no way to really prove that. This is my personal opinion. Maybe I'm a little biased, but I've seen how powerful this method is in my own work on the court. It's definitely improved my coaching. I use a blend of the Israeli style that I learned from Gilad Bloom and the Spanish method of Bruguera every day on the court. And I think I'm a 10 times better coach for studying with him and learning from him, maybe 100x coach. But I would encourage you guys to consider learning more about this method. Read some of my articles. I detail this method in depth in my book, Secrets of Spanish Tennis, for example. I include many of the exercises that I mentioned in my new book. Also, on our YouTube channel, we have many videos on Spanish tennis, Spanish training, Spanish drills. We have almost all the videos from the book, all of the drill videos from my new book on the YouTube channel for free. I'm still working on getting some of the videos remade and sort of re-edited, but we have almost all of the videos on the YouTube channel now for those of you who are curious. And also some great courses at clta.teachable.com. That's our online academy, CLTA, Chris Lou Tennis Academy, clta.teachable.com. If you go there, we have some excellent courses. Two of them are based on Bruguera, a lot on Bruguera's teaching. We have a course on footwork called #flow. We have a course on building the Spanish forehand, which is called #whip. And that one has a lot of these acceleration, VBT, velocity-based training drills in the course. Also, I have a really popular Spanish tennis library that just has like a huge amount of videos and resources, drills, articles I've written, insight into the Spanish way of training in a giant library that has been very popular, a very popular course that people have also tried at clta.teachable.com. So that's some of the ways you can learn more. Some of those are free. The Teachable courses are high quality paid courses, but whatever you want to do, you can learn more about the Spanish method. I think for sure one of the greatest methods I've ever seen, possibly one of the best methods in the world, possibly the greatest teaching method in the world. What do you guys think? Name me a method that is as great. There are some legendary coaches who had amazing teaching methods, like even going back into history. So drop me a comment, let me know what you think. Do you have someone in mind that could compete with the system of Luis Bruguera on the elements that I discussed as well, including speed to market, how quickly you can develop a player, how quickly you can get a player to the top, broad applicability, a system, a method that works with little kids as well as professional players, juniors and adults, all across the board, like a universal system that can work with so many people, like an artificial general intelligence that can do anything. This system's like that. And that is has these types of special drills and approaches that can develop acceleration, which every player needs, better movement, eyes and reactions, things like that. Plus a system that's holistic, a method that's holistic that incorporates positive message, inspiration. Luis is a master psychologist, so he incorporates psychology in all these aspects, and a system that doesn't cost very much, low tech, low equipment, not much equipment, low cost of equipment, easy to learn, easy to teach. You don't have to be a great player to use it. And that's extremely and beautifully simple. This has been one of the hallmarks of Spanish tennis, a simple approach that's very, very effective. Really cool system. I'm so blessed and fortunate that I spent the last 20 years traveling to Spain every year, multiple times, study trips, and Luis was so generous, and he shared with me his entire philosophy and system. At one point, he told me, please stop coming, you know everything now. And I just kept going, and I just always enjoy learning from him. And the incredible thing now is he's finally retired, and he's no longer actively coaching. So we've lost one of the giants of Spanish tennis, but I'm hoping that maybe in collaboration with Luis on his book or other projects, I can try to share with the world, maybe help him share his unique methodology that I think is just wonderful. And maybe there's a way we can share it with the world, either through a book or through other projects that we've been talking about. And because I'm very good at taking Luis's great ideas and sort of helping people understand them. That's one of the things I did in The Secrets of Spanish Tennis. I have a good way of communicating things simply, especially the things that I learned in Spain. And so we've been talking about doing some projects like that. Stay tuned. I'll let you guys know if we get a new project coming out. But I know Luis does have he told me today that he really would like to find a way to share. He's getting older, he's retired. He would like to find a way to share his unique method with the world, not just a small group of people, but everybody, so that everybody can benefit from this very special approach. So guys, the Bruguera method, check it out, learn more about it. If you want to experience the Bruguera method, well, Luis is retired, but guess who's not retired? And guess who's in the States? I'm available. I'm always looking for serious students. Can be young, can be old. You just need to be willing to work hard the Spanish way and be coachable. That's what I'm looking for. I don't care what your level is, and you can experience firsthand some of this incredible system, this incredible philosophy of tennis from this incredibly brilliant and creative mind who just wanted to develop something that worked, a simple method that worked for everybody and could improve tennis for everyone, from 2 years old to 90 years old to pro to beginner. And I think there's something really, really beautiful about that. All right, guys, God bless. I'll see you on the next program. Hope you enjoyed.